CFMoto has announced a brand new 750 category super sport machine that is guaranteed to make all of the street squids cream their jeans. Logan.
Absolutely. Yeah, CFMoto's coming out with new bikes faster than we can make videos about them.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
CFMoto is pumping out new motorcycles every 6 months. Suzuki took 20 years to give us a new engine.
Right. And before we get too far into it, I think it's funny you say the 750, they're bringing a new bike to the 750 category. A category that, as most of us know, hasn't really existed, at least as far as racing goes, for 20 some years, maybe more. And so it's funny that they're kind of making it a category again. The Gixxer 750 might sort of move up in the ranks of the motorcycle zeitgeist solely by CFMoto kind of reigniting this category.
Yeah, I mean, the new generation super sport category that is currently racing in World Super Sport, the rules have all been kind of thrown out the window. We got, triples, 4 cylinders, all the way up to 900 cc's. The R9 was homologated, the V2 for a while. We still have ZX6Rs on the grid. We've got Triumph 765s. We've got QJ Motors, SRK, and now CFMoto wants to come in with this new 750. There is a lot to talk about this bike. And
sure.
I think the first thing we have to say is it's very, very heavy. That's the first thing that stuck out to me when we were looking at this news, is that it's a wet weight of 470 pounds. For context, for those of you at home, the Gixxer 750 weighs 419, ready to ride. So that's a 50-pound delta.
Yeah, it's a heavy bike. It's a little bit of a porker, but I think that could also say there's a ton of stuff on this bike. That doesn't directly, features don't necessarily directly relate to curb weight. Think the Panigale V2S, very jam-packed with features, very svelte machine. But that's something we can get into more, to just how kind of highly equipped this new 750 is, as well as just everything coming out from CFMoto right
now. This new 750 is the polar opposite of people who want to go back and buy a 600 or a 750 from Suzuki that say, I don't want all that crap on my bike. CFMoto's like, we're going to give you all the crap on this bike.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah, whether you like it or not. So we're talking brakes with ducted coolings. We have quad exhaust, winglets, single-sided swing arm, TFT displays, the crazy lighting situation that CFMoto does. And old heads and old timers might look at that and say, all that crap is completely superfluous. But I remember when we tested the CFMoto 450SS, the owner that brought it to us said that his favorite thing about the bike, favorite thing about the bike was the lights on the bike on startup. So he'd hit the key and then it'd do this little startup sequence. Yeah. So I think CFMoto is meeting them in their market.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that about these bikes, because, I may have or may have not ridden a 675SS for a mile or two somewhere in the past 3 months. Maybe
left a huge impression, apparently.
But there are these little things that those bikes do that do give it a sort of premium feeling, or something that kind of piques your interest a little bit more than your run-of-the-mill Japanese 600 or 750. And like you said, I think these bikes are very much meeting the moment. I think CFMoto knows their customer base maybe more than they know themselves. You know what I mean?
100%.
But definitely more than these incredibly high volume, centuries long running Japanese motorcycle companies, right? Like, they're kind of, CFMoto is very much, they're deep in the trenches at TikTok. They're mining the data. They know what people want, and they have the means and the capital and the infrastructure to make it faster than anybody thought possible. You know? Like, I feel like 6 months ago, they're like, oh, in the wake of next generation super sport, the Gixxer 750 is kind of having its moment again. Let's just do that, but better and modern and all this stuff.
Yeah, and then they can just whip it out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It is genuinely impressive to see CFMoto be the company that was making 650cc clone engines in 2018 to now they can just summon a new platform just at will, at literally anytime, any place. They're just like, here's a brand new motorcycle. So much so that it's kind of hard to keep up with what they're doing. And I'm very interested in what the pricing on this model is going to be. Nobody knows yet, but mark my words, it's going to be sub $10,000 or very close to $10,000.
I feel like it has to be.
It has to be, because the 675SS has a $7,999 price tag, which is a pretty good deal for that motorcycle. There's no way that this bike's going to be over 10 grand, which, again, it's a lot of bike for the money. If you care a lot about the Inline 4 Scream, if you truly are out there saying you need a 4-cylinder motorcycles, these parallel twins, these triples, none of them will do it, CFMoto is answering your call. They're going to make the Voom 500, now the 750, both 4-cylinder offerings. For a lot of people, that's important.
Yep, and they're speculated too in another maybe 6 months or another year at the rate they're going V4 superbike, right? That's what they're saying. So they're saying the 750 is sort of, the to bridge the gap between the 675 and again, they're throwing categories out the window, right? It's not a 600, it's not a 400, a 600, 1,000 anymore. It's a 500 cc inline 4, 450 cc parallel twin, 675 triple, 750 cc four cylinder. It's arbitrary at this point. Like the category doesn't exist. It's just a cool bike and something that other companies aren't really doing. That I think people are going to get excited about. It is worth mentioning though too, not only is it a heavy bike, but it's maybe a little bit down on power than you might expect from a 750cc four cylinder too. But I think that's kind of just the world we live in now, right? Like there's a reason that manufacturers have sort of moved away from that platform to stay emissions compliant. I think in order to meet those Euro 5 standards, because CFMoto is very much like a global brand, right? And I think a lot of Asian countries too are getting even more strict on emission stuff. Like you saw that, what's the capital of Vietnam, whatever. But they're like trying to ban, they're trying to like ban internal combustion engines and stuff. So making these new CFMotos be emissions compliant is obviously a very important thing. But that comes with power laws, right? So it's saying right now, and while this bike isn't, in its final production state of tune yet, they can maybe squeeze a few ponies out of it. But as it stands now, it's making 110 horsepower. So maybe 20 horsepower down from the Gixxer 750.
Logan, it's well documented that you could flash that bike to make 160 horsepower.
I've heard that.
The CFMoto people on the Reddit forums and everywhere else, they say just flash it, 50 extra ponies.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe the 750 is a monster in weight.
Maybe.
Yeah. And it is a monster in weight,
I know,
literally as well, too. I just thought of that. So, one thing I was thinking about is that CFMoto now is a manufacturer. Once they launch that V4 Superbike, other than Yamaha, they might have the most interesting lineup based on engines alone.
Yeah,
right.
Varied, for sure.
Kawasaki, they got the supercharged bike at the top of the heap, but like everything up until the Z900 is like pretty milquetoast with the 650. They do make the ZX4, which is very unique, but then the Z900 is just like another 4-cylinder. Like Yamaha for a long time was the only one that made like a awesome parallel twin, awesome 3-cylinder, awesome 4-cylinder, right? Like Yamaha had this lineup of amazing engines, which is why I'm getting those checks, boys. Like I'm getting CFMoto checks, Yamaha checks over here. You guys don't even know how much I'm stacking up by promoting the CCCP content.
It's also speculated you're getting Royal Enfield checks. I've seen
and
that
Ducati
too.
checks.
Yeah.
How else do you think I'm living so large over here, boys?
Raking it in.
Stacking it up over here. But yeah, CFMoto is, I think, making some of the most interesting engines.
Yeah, for sure.
I think.
Because even Yamaha being a perfect example, CP2, CP3, CP4 were super awesome, are really awesome. It's hard to say, but how most manufacturers have moved to V4 configurations for their flagship leader bikes and stuff. Yamaha's inline 4 is looking a little bit outdated in that realm. So I think it's fair to say CFMoto definitely has the most varied and interesting lineup of engine architecture right now, because it's costly, right? Obviously there's a reason every manufacturer doesn't do that. All the R&D costs and making new castings and all this sort of stuff. And while it is maybe not speculated, but proven that this new 750cc 4-cylinder from CFMoto does have the exact same bore and stroke as like the old Yamaha 750. Otherwise, there's no real indication that it's, a clone engine or whatever. I'm sure there's, they've done their homework to make sure they hit the ground running with this platform. And it is shared bore, so similar pistons and rings and things as the 675. So sharing costs that way too.
One thing I think they've done that's super smart is both the 675 and the 750, because manufacturers can't like patent a number, right? As far as I know. They can just automatically build brand cachet for that model. Like, even though the 675SS obviously is not a Daytona, it doesn't even make anywhere near the top end power, those numbers are associated in our brain with an existing older model. Same with the 750, right? Like, they're making the 750SS, people are like, the Gixxer 750, an established race category, like all these things where like you already kind of have this idea that it's something legitimate. Whereas
Yeah.
like the SRK 800, you say 800, I'm like, is it a triple?
Right.
Is it a, parallel twin? But 750, I'm like, it's a 4-cylinder. I know what it is, right? And I think that's really smart.
Yeah, it's like how everybody, at one point in time, Kleenex was the facial tissue manufacturer, and all these other people were like, we can just make facial tissues too, and people just call them Kleenex,
Yeah.
And then you think of but like that's the brand, So I guess
Hoover
it's
with vacuums
yeah.
as well, it just like sticks. One point I wanted to make as well is there's this dichotomy between right now the Japanese conservative model of building motorcycles and engines and taking things really slowly. Suzuki has kind of like stretched that to its maximum. No new engines in 20 years. They make a new parallel twin. It is completely opposed to the Chinese way of doing things that I kind of called like business nihilism, right? The Chinese have this idea of the fitness gym where they'll take 100 companies. And they'll be like, one of you is going to figure out how to make solar panels really, really well. Go. And then the state basically supports all these companies and the best one just rises to the top.
Yeah.
And that's just a really different way of doing business than the Japanese do. Like Yamaha made the CP2 and the CP3 in the early 2010s. And then that's it. They haven't made a new engine since, basically. And they were like, these are going to be two wicked, awesome engines. We're maybe going to update them and change them a little bit here and there. We're going to run them for 20 years, CFMoto's like, we're going to make a 3-cylinder and maybe make it for 3 years. If it doesn't work, whatever. We'll just make another engine and then whatever. And so it's sort of this disposable Chinese motorcycle idea, right? I think a lot of people worry about the reliability and the disposability. It's like, oh, they didn't build these to like last a long time.
Right.
How do you square that up?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, there's got to be like a bell curve, right? Of like being able to have this sort of almost chaotic approach to engineering and manufacturing of being like, this is what people want, or this is what we think people are going to want. Let's do it right now while strike while the iron's hot. But again, that does lead to the thing of like, are they building these designs that are meant to like stand the test of time? You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know.
Or will just in another couple years when something else is very trendy or popular, then they'll just be like, all right, screw all that work we did before. Let's just hop on this new thing. I think it raises a lot of questions. But at the same time, I think they know, again, like I'm saying, like I think CFMoto knows their customers more than their customers know themselves. Like I think they understand that younger generations of riders have a completely different value system than older riders or people that are just have different like values, right?
Yeah, like these kids nowadays, they don't give two shits about 600s or thousands as a race category. None of them go racing. None of them are participating in racing. They just want a good bike that sounds cool for a cheap price.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
CFMoto is absolutely doing that right now.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a new cultural landscape. And
Certainly.
I think CFMoto is very much carrying the torch. And it opens up, the possibility if they're kind of priming the motorcycle market to interpret these bikes in a certain way or accept these bikes in a certain way, then that's, kind of paving the way for like QJ to come in and start taking advantage of that kind of existing presence. And yeah, like I said, just a whole new era. It's crazy.
So do you think it looks cool?
I think it looks a little busy. I appreciate it a little bit more understated thing. I think it looks kind of cool, but it's a little busy for my taste. It's a little bit hodgepodge. It kind of has like Frankenbike vibes, with like the exhaust is kind of wacky. And again, these haven't been officially launched. There's been like a teaser video came out the other day and everything. So there might
Guy was wearing AGV pista.
Exactly. Like I said,
they know what they're doing.
They know exactly what they're doing. And I think in that video too, it was like real street footage. It wasn't like track footage. It was like a canyon road or whatever. Again, very much because you watch a lot of stuff, marketing materials for these high-end, flagship sport bikes or whatever, and then there's a lot of track footage. But I think CFMoto realizes like that's not how their customer base sees themselves utilizing these bikes,
Yeah.
And again, they're moved past the idea of people paying any consideration to racing categories or racing performance. Like they're just like want squid missile bikes for the street.
Yeah.
But to bring it all back, I think it looks okay. I think it's a little bit busy. And by the time it is officially launched, maybe they'll refine some things, but what do you think?
I think it has a pretty futuristic look about it.
Yeah.
I think the single-sided swing arm matched with the new like half arrow wheel thing they're doing, from a side profile looks pretty interesting. I do like that CFMoto has a very distinct like look for their sport bikes.
Yeah.
Like all the 450, the 675, and then the new 750, they all definitely feel like the same family. That's honestly doing a bit of like a Suzuki Gixxer thing or Yamaha R-Bike thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Where they all kind of look the same, and that's a really great strategy. The other thing I think as well is the aerodynamic components where it has like folding aero winglets and all that other sort of stuff. It makes people just think the bike is much more aggressive and cool looking than it actually maybe is internal. Like I said, 110 horsepower is pretty mild. It's not
for
fire
470 pounds.
Yeah, for 400, it's not going to be lightning quick, but it'll sound cool and it looks cool, and the quad tips are cool. Ergonomically, it looks relatively relaxed to me. It doesn't look like super race bikes, so that's interesting too.
Yeah, and because I think that's too, while there's intentions to compete in World Supersport and stuff, none of those bikes, or I mean, that's an incorrect statement, but a lot of those bikes are very much like that category is becoming a sort of like street bikes on the track adjacent, more so than track bikes that are sold to people to ride on the street. And so it makes perfect sense that the 750 is kind of adhering to that archetype too. And again, just knowing how their customers are going to use it. And I think, they're like, well, if it looks fast and it sounds cool and it's cheap, that's just, Squid 101.
Yeah.
But to your point, again, you're talking about like the design language and stuff. That's just another impressive aspect of CFMoto's very short 8-year journey with motorcycles. Obviously, they've been doing stuff with like ATVs and off-road stuff since like the 80s, I think. But in less than 10 years, how far they've come from those dinky little 300s and then the weird Ninja 650 clones. And even I think, and again, there's so many different factors at play, but they're in a completely different era than even using the KTM engines, I think.
Yeah.
Like that was sort of, I think, the stepping stone, like this kind of bridging the gap between the old Honda clone engines and what they're doing now. But even now with developing their own engine platforms, their own design language and stuff, I think they're completely different bikes than say like the 800 NK, which is very much just like a kind of reskinned Duke.
Yeah. So I forgot they made that bike. It's a CFMoto.
The 800 NK?
I totally forgot that was even part of the lineup.
And like the Ibex 800 is like a reskinned 790
But that's pretty crazy too, right? Like we were just talking about all their different engine configurations, and I forgot that they have like a 799cc parallel twin as well in there in the mix, right? And it'll be interesting if they cross-platform these sport bikes to naked bikes, right? Are we going to get a 750 NK that's like a 4-cylinder? Because they don't seem to care whether or not these bikes exist close in categories. Like the 450SS and the 500 VOOM, they're like, whatever, like we'll sell them both. Like, I don't care.
Right.
And I think they make them look stylistically different enough to where people are just excited about it. I don't know.
It's getting 450 NK, right?
Yeah, there is a 450
But like,
NK.
you never really see them.
I haven't seen one.
I think it's just that proto Squid market. They know those dudes like fully fared bikes. You know what I mean? Whether they're riding them on the track or not, which they're likely not. But so because that's clearly why they've been prioritizing like the sport bike, fully fared sport bikes first versus the naked counterparts. But it's getting to the point where it's like ignore CFMoto at your own peril. I think they're making a lot of waves. I think that bikes like this get people super excited and it gets them talking, which is very important in today's world. Like you got to launch stuff that gets people being like, either it's controversial for X, Y, and Z reason or interesting for X, Y, and Z reason. And the aesthetics of these bikes, it's very important. Like the first thing that people talk about when any new model comes out is how it looks. That's the first thing. Everybody renders an opinion on how it looks. And so I think they're making splashy looking bikes in interesting segments with interesting engines. Again, ignore them at your own peril. That's my opinion. And I think, this sort of their kind of chaotic, maybe like anarchist approach to motorcycles. And I'll be like, categories don't matter. Whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Consistency doesn't matter. Like we're doing literally whatever we want and people are buying them and they're pretty cool. So it's definitely been their presence, I think, is really interesting and valuable overall in the market, even just in terms of shaking things up, you know, kind of throwing a wrench into the works and the expectations of manufacturers and riders alike.
Yeah. So we're going to keep an eye on CFMoto. If this 750 does come out, man, I might as well just get one for a giveaway just for the controversy of it. You know, I think whether you like it or not, CFMoto, whenever they pop up, people have lots of opinions, and that's what's good for social media. So thanks so much for checking out today's video. Hope you enjoyed this little update on the CFMoto 750. Remember to head the link on yamanoob.co and become a member and support the show. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.